Good morning on this beautiful day. Will you rise in body or spirit and join me in singing in your teal hymnal, hymn 1024, You've Got to Do When the Spirit Says Do. You've got to do when the Spirit says do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do. Oh Lord, you've gotta do when the Spirit says do. 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 You've got to sing when the Spirit says sing. You've got to sing when the Spirit says sing. When the Spirit says sing, you've got to sing. Oh Lord, you've got to sing when the Spirit says sing. 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 You've got to dance when the Spirit says dance. You've got to dance when the Spirit says dance. When the Spirit says dance, you've got to dance. Oh Lord, you've got to dance when the Spirit says dance. 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 You've got to laugh when the Spirit says laugh. You've got to laugh when the Spirit says laugh. When the Spirit says laugh, you've got to laugh. Oh Lord, you've got to laugh when the Spirit says laugh. 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 You've got to do when the Spirit says do. You've got to do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you've got to do. Oh Lord, you've got to do when the Spirit says do. 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 Spirit says do.
You're good. Good morning. Welcome to the Eno River Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, or ERUUF as we say. My name is Reverend Jacqueline Brett, and whoever you are, wherever you come from, whatever your race, your gender identities, whomever you love and wherever you are on your search for truth and meaning and your spiritual journey and your search for liberation and freedom, we invite you to be here in beloved community with us. If you're visiting with us for the first or perhaps even the second time, I invite you to rise in body or spirit so that we might give you an ERUUF welcome. Wow. Welcome, welcome all. It is so good to see you here this morning, and I'm so happy that you chose to spend this Sunday morning with us. In future weeks, should you come back, and I hope you will, right before this service at 10 o'clock in the building next door is a series of classes called Inquires for visitors and newcomers, and you'll get to learn a little bit about us, and you can share something about yourself and your journey with us as well. So I hope you'll do that. And if anyone has children with you, your children can participate with our children in our classes of religious exploration. After the story, we will sing the children out, and if you're interested in that, just follow the crowd and you'll be taken care of. So now would be a great time to turn off or down any devices you might have. So let's all take a deep breath in and let it out. And just center ourselves for a moment in this now and this time, and just settle our bodies down. So each of us bring a separate truth here. We bring the truth of our own life, our own story. We don't come as empty vessels, but as full people, each with our own story and our own truth.
We seek to add to our truths and add to our stories. This room is rich with truth, rich with experience. All manner of peoples are here, needy, joyful, frightened, anxious, bored.
Oh, not yet. We all bring our truth with us. May we all recognize the truth and the story in other lives than our own.
May we hear and honor the truths that we all bring as we gather together.
Together we have truths.
Together we have a story.
Together we are a community. Here today in this place and with these people, may we listen so that we can hear. May we hear so that we can feel. May we feel so that we can know. And may we know so that we can change ourselves and this world. And may this chalice light our way.
We come from the mountain, living in the mountain. Go back to the mountain, turn the world around. We come from the fire, living in the fire. Go back to the fire, turn
that, didn't you? So I'm always doing something out of turn, and I was supposed to do the welcome now. So everybody here is just so awesome because everybody was looking at me like, and they just went with it. But I'm just so transparent, I just had to say that. And so I say that because Hillary Zilizinski and Lisa Jones are our pledge co-chairs, and they were supposed to come up and speak and share with us. And so without further ado, they're going to do that because it's the beginning of our pledge.
Oh, boy.
It's a nice applause for coming up here. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Yes, this is great. When I reflect on what ERUUF means to me, I think back to being newly married as a young woman, excited to find a fair balance between what I had been raised as a Lutheran, which I was happily a part of, yet falling in love with a man who grew up Baha'i, and how those things might converge. Joey, my husband, grew up in Oklahoma, and after his college years was finding UUism through All Souls Unitarian in Tulsa, Oklahoma, before heading to North Carolina. And back then, when podcasts and live streams were incredibly new, I listened to many of those All Souls podcasts and learning that Unitarian Universalism was for us. That's what brought us here to ERUUF, and ERUUF brought us together in our faith journey, our community, and I was thrilled to get our first rows right down here as a new member, which then allowed us to kind of dive even deeper in chalice circles, visitor hosting, and participating in what I remember is like a really memorable women's workshop that I still have some of the art from. And even when we got our sweet send-off, when we went off for a Peace Corps tour in 2010, a really nice event. After returning back to Durham after Azerbaijan, which was now 10 years ago, our second unexpected rose came after our first son was stillborn. We believed we were going to the hospital to have a healthy and active child, and Reverend Deb back then helped us be able to know how to weave ourselves back together with our broken hearts, and through this thoughtful place, and I see many of you here, really wove us back to heal and honoring our son Jacob. Our much happier rose came after our now 7-year-old Benjamin was dedicated here at ERUUF. That's back when he was so small, he was still had these super chubby cheeks blowing strawberries during the service. And I distinctly remember the laughter coming from that. And Amelia, who's turning 5 in just 2 weeks, and I feel certain she will remind you if any of you ask, we're planning to have her dedicated in April, since her first dedication, which we were hoping to have right after she was 1, was interrupted by the pandemic kicking off. Since being back on the campus for the last 1.5 years, both of our kids have found their place in RE, Christmas pageants, OWL and Sunshine Kids. They roam around with comfort and confidence in this crazy world that we live in, and they're making lifelong friends. I couldn't be more thrilled to be involved and inviting in such a vibrant place that continues to remind us that we belong. I also take comfort in knowing that love and compassion is palpable as others continue to navigate the joys and sorrows of rose ceremonies. With our very busy lives, I'm more than happy with the convenience and the commitment that I can give by being a sustainer, in addition to giving of my time and talents. We ask you to consider, what does ERUUF mean to you? Make your pledge, consider increasing your pledge, and because this is us for these times.
Hi, everybody. Hey, that's good stuff. Hey. All right. I have had the honor of representing us in a number of capacities over the past 5 years. I've stood before you as a participant in Kwanzaa, a contributor to the Literary Journal, a member of the nominating committee, co-chair of the Ministerial Search Committee, Sunday worship associate, poet in numerous poetry services, jazz vespers, and Cafe ERUUF. I've marched in the Pride Parade as a part of Pride Plus, multicultural team spokesperson, BIPOC team lead. I've been busy, Reverend Jacqueline. Yeah. A member of the leadership team and Restitution for Racism group. I can't really say which of these roles has been most important to me, but I can say that the reason I stand before you right now is the most important to us as a whole, especially for these times. As co-chair of the 2024 annual pledge campaign, I'm grateful for the time that we're going to get to spend together over the next few weeks. Growing up, I heard my grandmother's Baptist church referred to as a refuge, a shelter in the storm, a place to rest the weary soul. I thought, hyperbole, right? But then, as a newly retired 53-year-old who had traveled the country through a career that fed my wanderlust, I woke one morning with a restless spirit and found myself sitting on one of these pews. And I was waiting to exhale. I did. I exhaled. Maybe I was hasty in judging the value of sanctuary, even if for nothing more than to have a safe place to theorize the difference between what I think in my head and what I feel in my heart. And although there may be times that I forget things about ERUUF, a meeting time, a date, or the meeting itself, ERUUF doesn't forget about me. It doesn't forget about us, right? Whether it was cards and calls during the pandemic, flowers from the care team when my heart or my body was broken, or a space to remind me that we don't all need to look alike, even view life and religion the same to show up for one another. ERUUF remains a warm and stable container for the love and the hope that we have for each other, especially when times are tough. This is ERUUF. This is us, especially for these times. I hope you'll join us at the pledge drive table after the service. Thank you.
Here we go. Wow! Who knew? Well, I know what I'm doing this week. I'm gonna get some glue. Okay, y'all, don't let me fall. Got it? Are we secure? We're secure? Is it an okay place to sit? Maybe I'll take a chair instead. We'll get that plugged. We'll get that glued in before we sit on it. How about that, y'all? How about that, y'all? Right. Well, I'm kind of glad so nobody got hit by a random stool leg falling out. You know, it's good for you. Got a little down here a little slow. Thank you so much. Okay. You never know what's going to happen on any day of the week. So today, I'm going to read you a story all about community. It happens to be, Reverend Jacqueline says it's her favorite book. I theorize it's one of her favorite books, because I think she probably has more than just one. But I do believe it is one of her favorites. And it is a lot of fun. And you see here, actually, but you see on the screen, the Dala Dala is full of people and things. You see it here on the page, which I don't think is in the slides. You see it doesn't have very many people or things in it yet. Surely we will fill that up. Room for everyone. The Dala Dala rumbled and roared, and Musa and Dada were off to the shore to feast on fish at the Friday Bazaar by the blue crystal waters of Zanzibar. Soon after zooming past Zuleika Street, they saw one old man and his bike with no seat. So the driver honked and pulled to the side and asked, "Dear brother, do you need a ride? It's hotter than peppers out there in the sun. Come in. There's room for everyone." Do you think there's room for him? Yeah. "But Dada," said Musa, "I don't think there is enough room for that man and that cycle of his." "Don't worry, Musa, there's space galore. If you move just a bit, we can make room for more." So in came the man with his sweaty old feet and his bike with no bell and no light and no seat. And after some wiggles and giggles and fun, they made enough room for everyone. You see them all, everybody and everything that's fit in the Dala Dala. Next, they passed the Bagala boats, and a herder appeared with 2 little goats. So the Dala Dala pulled to the side, and the driver yelled, "Do you need a ride? It's hotter than peppers out there in the sun. Come in. There's room for everyone." You think there's going to be room? No? Well, we're going to see. But Dada asked Musa, "Can there really be enough room for a cycle, 2 goats, and me?" "Of course there is. If we squeeze a bit, we'll make enough room for us all to fit." And though the seating arrangement was tight, Musa could see that Dada was right. After a shuffle, a squirm, and a squeeze, they found a small space beside Dada's knees. Dun, dun, dun. Onward they went with a honk and a toot till vendors appeared with 3 baskets of fruit. So they pulled to the side, and as you can guess, Musa cried out and began to protest. "Mangoes and melons and parachichi, we don't have the space, please listen to me." But up came the baskets of tropical fruits, and down dripped the juices on ankles and boots. Everyone wiggled and giggled galore till somehow they carved out a space on the floor. Mangoes and melons and parachichi. Onward they puttered past palms and sails till a farmer appeared with 4 shiny pails filled with milk all the way to the top. So the Dala Dala came to a stop. "We can't, we mustn't, I do not see where he could possibly sit," Musa cried in despair. But the passengers wiggled, and somewhere, somehow, they made space for the farmer and milk from his cow. Do you see where this is going? Yeah, well, sometimes we've got to make space for community. Well, we'll see. We'll see. Will the bus break? Will the Dala Dala break? Good question. The Dala Dala drove past from some farms till they saw 5 mamas with fish in their arms. So the conda stuck his head outside, yelling, "Sisters, hello, do you need a ride?" "No," cried Musa, "this rickety bench has no room for those fish and their ickety stench." But the passengers wiggled and squished on the floor and made room, enough room for the ride to the shore. See them all getting packed in there with those fish nets and the fishes. Fish on everything and everybody. 6 minutes later, a farmer was walking with 6 stinky chickens that wouldn't stop squawking. And right there beside them were several fellows carrying 7 Katenge umbrellas. "Hop in," someone shouted. "Get out of the sun. There's plenty of room for everyone." Musa resisted. "These chickens are fat and 7 umbrellas. There's no room for that." Dada insisted, "Just open the door." So everyone wiggled and giggled galore and eventually found enough room for more. Really? It's a little packed, but they're making it work. This is community sometimes. You keep on, like people want to join, you keep on making it work. Soon they were making a turn down the lane when a vendor carrying 8 sugar canes and 9 tender coconuts fresh off the tree. What yummy, refreshing, sweet drinks these could be. The passengers shouted, "Do you need a ride?" Note that we have moved to the passengers just shouting out now. It was the driver before. Now the passengers are just like, "Come on board." There's a little bit of difference there. The passengers shouted, "Do you need a ride?" And as you can guess, Musa worried and cried, "This is outrageous. We can't let them in. We're already smushed like sardines in a tin." Though it was clearly a very tight fit, they wouldn't give up. No, they just wouldn't quit. So in came the coconuts, tender and sweet, and the sugar canes tangled between people's feet. One of my favorite pictures, seeing all those sugar canes tangle in the feet. Tickling everyone's toes as they wiggled until even Musa started to giggle. A few minutes later, they stopped for fuel, which happened to be near a diving school, where 10 divers were ready to go with suits and gears and tanks in tow, trying to get in on all the commotion so they could explore the Indian Ocean. But was there room for all their stuff? Did the Dala Dala have room enough? What do you think? Mixed feelings. Some yeses, some no's, some they're going to make it fit somehow. And though the Dala Dala was packed from top to bottom and front to back, Musa yelled out, "Come join the fun. We'll make enough room for everyone." So the swimmers with snorkels and tubes and fins wiggled and giggled and wriggled right in. I know. And here you see the Dala Dala from both sides, packed in, so many people on their way in community, figuring out how to make it work. And Musa and Dada. The tires were reeling and spinning and burning, the passengers sweating and twisting and turning, elbow to shoulder, beak to nose, feathers to feet, and udders to toes. What a sight to see, what a comical crew, stuck together like globbity glue. They clunkety-clunked like junk in a trunk, so close to a breakdown, kerplunkety-plunk. I remember what you said. You're thinking, oh, will they break down? Oh, they're getting close. I don't think, maybe. There are goats on the bus. There are goats on the dollar. Oh, I think it's peeking out from behind the fish. Maybe the goat can hide behind fish. When suddenly all of them heard a screech, alhamdulillah, they'd arrived at the beach. Finally. Out came 10 swimmers with snorkels and fins who ran to the ocean and dove right on in. Out came 9 coconuts, fresh and tender, and out came the whistling coconut vendor. Out came the 8 sticky sweet sugar canes with 7 umbrellas for sunshine and rains, 6 stinky chickens and 5 piles of fish, 4 heavy pails full of milk so delish, 3 big old baskets of fruit for a treat, 2 little goats, and 1 bike with no seat. At last, they had finally reached the blue crystal waters of Nungwi Beach, where Musa and Dada and everyone could wiggle and giggle under the sun. Or the water. So sometimes we come together in community and we kind of get packed in, but it's kind of cool when people are like, come on, join us. Even if we have to figure out how to wiggle and giggle and squish a little bit, that can be really fun. And so they had a good day at the beach now. And that is the end of the story. And I look forward to going with all of you towards religious exploration today.
Let's sing peace, salam, shalom as our young folks leave us. Peace, salam, shalom. Peace, salam, shalom. Peace, salam, shalom. Peace, salam, shalom. We believe in peace. We believe in peace. We believe in peace. We believe in peace. Salam, shalom. We believe in peace. We believe in peace. We believe in peace. We believe in peace. Salam, shalom.
Let's keep singing. Please rise in body or spirit and join me on hymn number 34 in your gray hymnal. Though I may speak with bravest fire and have the gift to all inspire, and have not love, my words are vain as sounding brass and hopeless gain. Though I may give all I possess, and striving so my love profess, but not be given my love within, the prophet soon turns strangely thin. Come, Spirit, come, our hearts control, our spirits long to be made whole. Let inward love guide every deed. By this we worship and are freed. Please turn and greet your neighbors this morning.
Please join me now in the spirit of meditation and prayer. Spirit of life, we gather today to pause in the midst of our daily routines, to seek solace and support in turbulent times. Everywhere we look, our hearts can feel pulled by a conflict-torn world, whether it is Russia or Ukraine, Israel, Palestine, Gaza, Syria, Sudan, Oklahoma, Washington, D.C., or even in Durham, North Carolina. And the swirl of news and noise all around us, help us to once again find our center, find the ground of our being, and remember the power of love to heal and transform. Life can leave us feeling hungry for hope. Let us come together this day in gratitude to celebrate and to remember. We celebrate the gift of community, a place of refuge and purpose, a fellowship that calls us to action, a place where we radiate joy, love, and a spirit of generosity. We celebrate the core values of community, to engage in our ongoing commitment to equity and justice. We celebrate the blessings of beloved community that remind us of who we are, who we can be fully, and how we can make a difference in the world. We remember that when we come together centered in love, we can truly live into our mission to transform lives. We remember it is our work, our generosity, and our very presence in coming together here, shared with each other in covenant, that creates and sustains this thriving community. We remember as a people who care for one another and lift up our prayers and concerns. We hold in our hearts and mourn the loss of the young people who died recently in Washington and in Oklahoma, and those whose names we may not even know, and all those who live under the threat of violence and harm. May they know comfort and support. We hold in our hearts all those who may feel lost or alone, facing the everyday difficulties of life. May they know hope and connection. We hold in our hearts the heart and soul of the world. May we seek to find ways to come together with deeper understanding, create peace, and put compassion into action. We hold in our hearts all those celebrating joys, milestones, and successes. We celebrate and remember the simple power of blessing reflected in the Buddhist metta prayer of loving kindness. May all beings be safe. May all beings be happy. May all beings everywhere be free. May this prayer guide us as we seek to create the more beautiful worlds our hearts know is possible. May it be so. Amen. Ashe, and blessed be.
Can you feel it? Can you feel it? Can you feel it? Transformation. Change is happening to me today. Transformation of myself touches my spiritual essence and summons me to participate in things that are important to me. Dr. Ellen Lang is a Yale grad and now a Harvard psychologist who is tagged as the mother of mindfulness. She is the author of Beyond Aging, Unlocking the Mindful Body. I saw her in an interview on YouTube, and she really caught my attention with her comments on mindfulness in the elderly. She summarizes that we can control our physical activity and our emotional well-being by being aware of how we perceive and react to circumstances we encounter. In my childhood, my 20s, 30s, my life was happy and carefree. It seemed that every project I took on turned to gold. I felt blessed by a power bigger than myself. In my 40s, something happened to transform my life. I was diagnosed with a mandibular tumor. It was benign. It had to be removed by my left jawbone being removed and my face being reconstructed using my fibula from my left leg as my new jawbone. The surgery was done at UNC Hospital, my alma mater, so I had great trust in the doctors. The surgery was 13 hours and 15 doctors working on me. After surgery, my fellow nurse friends visited me and later told me upon discharge that my head and face were so large I was unrecognizable to them. I had not been allowed to be in a room with a mirror until my day of discharge. I was in the midst of a physical, life-changing transformation. Little did my visitors know that I had decided before surgery that these physical changes were going to enhance my life somehow. I didn't know about mindfulness then, but my soul, my essence, knew how I perceived and reacted to these circumstances would control my health and my emotional well-being. I chose to say, I am healed, instead of, I will try to heal. When you say try to do something, you are assuming you will fail. Dr. Langer says, well, I was out of work for 3 months. I survived by intentionally perceiving transformation was for a better future. Today, at 64 years old, I am working on my MSN to nurse practitioner. If this event had not happened to me, I would not have risen to this academic challenge. At 64, can you feel it? I am excited turning 65. I receive it to be a positive enhancement for me and my soul. I'm becoming more intentional, more present about how I speak, what I choose to do and not do. I am approaching the pinnacle. Dr. Langer's research shows that people using mindfulness live longer. For example, I expect to live to 100. And so I'm planning now how I want to live. I know that I am still developing as I age because I want to. Today, I can feel it. What a major life-changing transformation upon the horizon. I'm turning 65 this year. I can feel it. The next transformation is on the way. I can feel it. I can feel it. I can feel it.
Thank you, Jay. That is some story. You never cease to amaze me. So I did like that children's story, just like I like the song that the kids sang. It was so good. And I like a lot of the children's stories, so I will just say that too. You know, I have been experiencing a lot of restlessness in this room, so I want us all to just take a breath for a moment. Just take a breath and just be still. Let's just see if we can still ourselves just for a moment. And in this moment, may we call upon our ancestors, those who would encourage our thriving and well-being. Let us call upon the ancestors who loved us here, and you may do this out loud. Alvin and Portia. Yes. Let us call upon the ancestors who are chosen family and elders who have inspired our lives and our hearts. Toni Morrison, James Baldwin, Ntozake Shange, and let us also call upon those ancestors we want to say, come, look and see, what you may have thought could never be is possible. Call them. When you are ready, open your eyes so that I know that you're done. So how wonderful it is to see you this morning. It has become something of a joke among the rest of the staff about how I worry whether folks will be here on Sunday morning, especially when the weather is bad or it's a holiday weekend or we're having the pledge drive. I do notice more empty spaces than usual. But I'm always pleasantly surprised by your presence, that you are here and that you continue, as some have interpreted the poet Rumi as saying, to come yet again come. What a joy it is. So much so that we are actually seeing our highest attendances ever now that we've moved into a new era of multi-platform services in which people are not only here in person but also online. And so I want you to do something with me as we acknowledge that. If you're able, I want you to turn around and look at that little R2D2 machine up there. That's our camera. And on a count of 3, everyone as you are able, I want you to wave and say, "Hi, y'all," so that we can connect with everybody who's coming in from those other places. 1, 2, 3. Hi, y'all. And we invite you online to say hi, y'all, back. We won't hear you, but it's the intention that matters. So I want to say something about how we care for one another. We sat down today, and I noticed we had all these mugs with our names on them, and I was like, holy cow. I mean, we always have this thing with the cups up here and getting them all confused, and I have one, and Daniel has one, and Reverend Jim has one. I can't say you all have one, but we have one. I think that is probably due to, this feels like John, the Medlin Grimes, is that y'all? Thank you. That is so thoughtful, so very thoughtful. Thank you so much. You know, I'm frequently meeting someone from somewhere else in the country who has been watching our services online. And it's for that reason that they actually come here to be here in person when they're visiting North Carolina, which is quite amazing. My heart is so deeply touched to know that what we are doing in this room here on Sunday mornings is connecting with those who cannot be in this space for one reason or another. Sometimes technology can be a wonderful thing. So yesterday, some of us here from ERUUF, along with members of the UU congregations of Chapel Hill, Raleigh, and Wilmington, participated in the Poor People's Campaign's Moral March on the North Carolina State Capitol, led by Reverend Dr. William Barber, who is certainly a prophetic voice for our times. If you were there, please raise your hand. I was there. Thank you. Thank you for being there, everyone. You know, yesterday, Reverend Barber let us know about something that others probably took note of, but which resonated for me quite powerfully. He reminded us that today was the anniversary of an event called Bloody Sunday. Now, it's not actually the date of Bloody Sunday, which took place on March 7th, but it is the Sunday, the first Sunday in March, during which this happened. It was named Bloody Sunday because 59 years ago in Selma, Alabama, civil rights marchers led by John Lewis, the late John Lewis, then of SNCC, along with others, they were brutally beaten after crossing the Edmund Pettus Bridge between Montgomery and Selma, Alabama. As a result, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King sent a message to ministers all over the country that he knew were sympathetic to the cause of civil rights and voting rights for blacks. King said that their presence was needed in Alabama immediately. The Unitarian Universalist Association at that time was in a board meeting, and they decided to move the meeting from Boston down to Selma. And they put out a call to Unitarian Universalist ministers around the country to join them there. And many did, and for most of them, it was a life-altering experience, a transforming experience. But 2 days later, on March 9th, they marched again, and later that evening, 3 Unitarian Universalist ministers, among them the Reverend Dr. James Reeb, were beaten by members of the KKK. Reverend Reeb died of his injuries a couple of days later, which resulted in a national outcry that included the attention of President Lyndon Johnson. Now, it's important for you to note that others had also died or were brutally injured as well. The difference, however, was that Reeb, who was a good friend of Dr. King's, was also a white man who also happened to be a minister who received the nation's attention. Shortly thereafter, UU civil rights worker Viola Luiso was murdered by the KKK as well. These UUs, along with others, are rightfully named martyrs of the civil rights movement. And this is where we, here in Durham, came in. A woman living in this area by the name of Mimi Harrison had been a former congregant of Reverend James Reeb when she was at All Souls Church in Washington, D.C., and she wanted to establish a congregation in his memory. So she reached out to local UUs she knew, which included Fran and Bill Hollister, who had been successful starting up UU fellowships elsewhere. And thus, on April 12th, 1966, 42 people signed the charter that formed the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Durham and Chapel Hill. That's us. You can find their names on the plaque on the wall right outside the chapel if you leave the sanctuary and make a sharp left. All of these folks are now ERUUF ancestors, with the exception of two, Georgie and Rick Searles, who you'll get to hear from next week. By the way, our name changed to what it is today in 1978 as a result of the Eno River flowing behind the church's building on Sparger Road. And we had grown to 134 members. So I always believe that it's important to tell the story of our origins because, as Alice Walker has famously said, to acknowledge our ancestors means we are aware that we did not make ourselves. We remember them because it is an easy thing to forget that we are not the first to suffer, rebel, fight, love, and die. As I consider these ERUUF ancestors, as I quite often do, also among the founders of who we are today are some people who came in just a little while later and still remain here today. I recently met with some of them at the meeting of the seniors group, and most of them have been here somewhere between 25 and 50 years. Which is older than some of you sitting here in the pews right now. So this is no small thing to dismiss or ignore, as we are often guilty of in this country of ours, which tends to disregard or hold our elders with disdain, as though they are not a part of our interconnected collective, or no longer relevant to the purposes of the lives we actually hold in common, wherein the truths of their stories, which came before our stories, are connected to the truths of our own in these times. We know some things that they don't know, and they know some things that we don't know. The folks who were here in the earlier years of this community, in my view, had 5 key qualities that we sometimes talk about today as though we are the first to discover them or to name them. But they actually lived them, and because they did so, we are now a witness and recipients of the fruits of their labors, and thus we are able to say, this is us. Those 5 qualities of the early members of ERUUF were: 1, imagination. A UU congregation in Durham had been tried before by another group, and it did not succeed. So this new fellowship had to imagine itself and cast a vision for what it imagined in such a way that this time would result in success, which led to the second quality, which was action. Imagination and vision are never enough if you're unwilling to put in the time, the energy, and the care that it takes to birth something new. And third was faith. And I want y'all not to get rattled by that, some of you. Because this kind of faith that I'm talking about is the faith that meant that hope that their actions would not fail. They had hope. They trusted in themselves and they trusted one another. And finally, they moved together in covenant as both noun and verb, which I'll say a little bit more about in a moment. 4, they were generous. They were generous with their time, their talent, and their treasure. And I've been thinking about this lately because the fact is that many of those people back 40, 50 years ago were the same age as some of you sitting in this room right now, if not younger. They had children, they had jobs, they were just getting their careers off the ground, and so they did and gave what they could. And finally, they had courage. The courage to not become rattled or mean-spirited as the congregation grew. They kept making room for everyone because growth means change. For instance, the need to bring in professional staff once this place grew too large in size and complexity to be run solely by volunteers. And once again, to have faith that the professional staff would be good guides and stewards of what had been created such that things would continue to flourish. And while there were indeed bumps along the way over the years, things have, for the most part, flourished. They also had the courage to face unintended consequences because we can't always predict the consequences of our actions, try though we might. And I don't think that that's always a bad thing. It allows us to develop more expansive qualities and goals as our courage grows. For instance, today we talk about widening our circle of concern, of radical welcome, and a practice of collective hospitality. And that we should more fully embrace what it means to be a pluralistic community that holds multiple beliefs. A culture that was willing to be courageous enough had to be formed here and is still forming here in order for these things to take place. So it's important that we know the history and the story of the people who, whether they were consciously doing so at the time or not, used their imagination, their actions, their faith, their generosity, and courage, and as a result, became the source of what we who are here today experience when we arrive on this campus and through these doors, whether we are minister, whether we are staff, whether we are member, child, youth, friend, or visitor. And this is not to be carelessly ignored. Can I get an amen? Amen. That's right. So that was then. But who are we today in this moment? Here's a picture of us from what I know to be true on this day. We are young and still trying to figure out life. We're young in spirit, or as I like to say, church young, which is a bit older than what most people consider to be young. And we are elders with wisdom that sometimes goes ignored. We are white, we are Black, Indigenous, Latinx, Asian, multiracial, and have ethnicities from all continents with the exception of Antarctica. We are from the North, the East, the South, and West. We are U.S. born and immigrants, and each one of us a human being of inherent worth and dignity and not illegal. We are single, we are partnered, we have children, we don't have children, but we covenant to attend to the safety and well-being of the children and youth who are here. We are straight, cisgendered male or female, we are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, asexual, non-binding, and We hold space for expanding and new understandings of our diverse gender and sexual identities. We are wealthy, somewhere in the middle, and struggling to make ends meet. We are sheltered, and we are sometimes worrying if we can remain sheltered. We have lots of education. We have basic education. We have health care. We don't have health care. We are pluralistic in our religious belief, consisting, as far as I know, of atheists, agnostics, Christians, humanists, Jews, Muslims, pagans, practitioners of Buddhism and shamanism, studiers of A Course in Miracles, seekers, spiritual but not religious, yogis, and folks who are just trying to figure it all out. And more besides. Just make yourselves known. We move about with the privilege of no fear, and we live in constant stress or fear because of a racial, ethnic, cultural, sexual, disability, economic, or other identity that we hold. We are, each one of us, gifted in our own ways with talent to share. We are siblings, we are kin and beloveds. This is us. And imperfect though we each are, and though it is sometimes a challenge to figure it all out, there is a place for us here. There is community here. There is love here. There is creativity, vision, and imagining. There is an opportunity to grow in grace, kindness, and compassion. It all begins when what we most want is what we choose to give. It is when we choose to continue trying, when it would be far easier to be offended, angry, and to leave. Ultimately, this is who we are. This is how we become, beloved community, transformed. So I hope you are as awed by who we collectively are as I am. And even that there is still much more for us to do. If you think of something I've missed, send it to me and I'll expand the list, though I do admit that I left out all the dietary things and how much of a challenge it is to feed a room full of UUs. But we do make it happen. So next week, I'll share with you how we hold all of this together reasonably and rationally, as some of the members of the Inquirers class asked me when I was in their class between services today. They were like, how do you hold all this together? So I'll talk about that next week. Because sometimes, and this is why this is important, especially when people are new here, particularly when not members, there is confusion about what it means to bring one's whole self here. Because we do this by the agreements we make with one another to be in covenant with each other. And that is what I'll talk with you about next week. But before I go, I want to share a brief story with you. One of the things that happened here several months ago is that there was a Buddhist retreat taking place here. Now, the Buddha taught that we can meditate lying down, sitting, or standing. And on that day, this sanctuary was filled with people doing all of that. Some were lying down in the pews, some were sitting on their meditation cushions on the floor in the aisles, some were sitting cross-legged in the pews, and some were standing. Most importantly of all, it was a multi-generational, multicultural, and multi-gendered group. And I stood at the back of the sanctuary and surveyed the room. I looked at Sean Trimble, who was running the soundboard, and I said, yes, 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 more of this. Then I was quite astounded when Lama Rod Owens, the teacher for the retreat, asked the group about this congregation and whether there were people present who attended on a regular basis. A few people I didn't really recognize raised their hands, and also about 3 people who were members. Then someone from the visiting community raised her hand and said, "What I do know about this place is that this congregation is a beacon in Durham." My mouth fell open, and I smiled and thought, wow. By simply being who we are, being committed to being who we are, by expanding, by growing, we are a beacon. And when I say growing, I don't mean growing in size. I mean growing inside. I also learned this weekend that people in California are also talking about the community we have and the community that we have been creating here at ERUUF. That is no small thing. So I'll be talking to you next week about what it means to be a beacon. Meanwhile, may our light continue to shine, radiating within this beloved community, our community, and out into the larger community around us. Amen, Ashe, and let us make it so. So as I mentioned, today is the pledge, and if you look in your pew racks, you will see that you have new pledge cards in your pew rack, and you can point your devices at those cards and you may make a pledge. It will lead you right to our pledge page. On one side of the card, it's a QR code for just to make a donation, and the other side is to make your pledge. You may also point your devices, I see some of you already doing, to the QR code here on this screen, even though I know your husband is really just filming y'all. But you can do that as well, and you will be led to our giving page. Because here's the thing, all that is seen and experienced in this community is due to the pledges and gifts of generosity and imagination and time and talent and treasure contributed by our members, and also by those of you who are our friends and visitors and who appreciate what you experience here and want to see it continue to thrive and flourish. And so as the greeters come forward, thank you for the cups, greeters. They will take up the Sunday offering, today's offering, and we will be sung by, do y'all have a name, or is it just Christy Chilton, Christy's child, Andrin, and by Pam. And should I not call you a child? Adolescent, youth? I just want to make sure I call. Okay, teenager.
Yeah.
Grown up, Andrin just voted at 17. All right, I'll stop talking now, Andrin, I'm sorry.
I see the river flowing.
So we give thanks for all the gifts of our community, the gift of music, the gift of being in community, the gift of what we create together. And so, come on, Jacqueline. Jacqueline will lead us in our closing hymn. Thank you so much for your presence today.
Thank you. Please rise and body your spirit. We're going to be singing Building a New Way, which is in your teal hymnal on page 1017. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. Hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, our world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way.
Our closing words today are from James Baldwin, who writes, "For nothing is fixed forever, forever, forever. It is not fixed. The earth is always shifting. The light is always changing. The sea does not cease to grind down rock. Generations do not cease to be born, and we are responsible to them because we are the only witnesses they have. The sea rises, the light fails. Lovers cling to each other, and children cling to us. The moment we cease to hold each other, the moment we break faith with one another, the sea engulfs us and the light goes out. May we continue to hold each other. May we not break faith with each other. Amen. Ashe. Blessed be, and go in peace.